There seems no doubt in my mind that the transcendent themes in Twin Peaks go far beyond explorations of light versus dark, good versus evil. But instead, they strike at the very nature of reality itself, or the many levels of reality that exist that operate on different planes simultaneously. Okay, so keeping with this spirit theme, but changing gears a little bit now, you know, in the very first frame, in the opening credits, a bird is the very first thing we are shown in Twin Peaks. And more often than not, especially in film and TV, the first thing we are shown is a prelude or an unconscious signal that there is something of great importance or emphasis that we normally would just kind of gloss over. Perhaps the shot of this female varied thrush was actually fortuitous and not as methodical or intentional as some may attribute it to, but regardless, we cannot ignore the fact that the thrush species of bird are very special indeed. Combined with the fact that it appears that this shot was taken in the very same place just above where Laura Palmer's body was found at the beginning of the show. That in itself has some very compelling associations. The exact location of this scene was discovered by Stephen Miller at TwinPeaksBlog.com, who wrote an entire article about how he managed to find this place. So, sir, good work, great detective work, Agent Miller. And then there's his blog location there at the top if you want to check it out. Pretty interesting. Now, this business of familiars, spirit animals, shapeshifters, and doppelgangers alike, or what we could call spirit doubles, including the dweller on the threshold, as Hawk explains to Agent Cooper, seems to be unconsciously pointed at over and over in Twin Peaks. It's right there in the very first moment of the opening credits, similar to the very last scene of Blue Velvet, which strikes me as a beautiful continuation and as a bridge between two worlds, both of which integrally connected in their occulted and dreamlike presentations. Birds eternally have been representations of spirit carriers and keepers of secrets. Now, remember the man from another place in Cooper's dream when he says, "Where we're from, the birds sing a pretty song." The transcendent emphasis on birds in Twin Peaks representing the various spirits of the forest and of the town is an archetypal theme throughout many of the world's sacred traditions and folklore. So, if the owls are not what they seem in Twin Peaks, and where we're from, the birds sing a pretty song, we may readily interpret this as referring to Glastonbury Grove, which is a portal and a place where the spirits pass through it as inhabitants of the forest, taking the form of various birds. In the beginning, with the very first thing we are shown in Twin Peaks, a thrush perched above the place where Laura Palmer's body was found. I think that's significant. Now, it seems as if we have an unconscious order of characters in Twin Peaks which are either aligned with the angelic songbirds, the predatory and dark owls, or the clever ravens and mynah birds, which exist somewhere in between. And of course, we can't forget about Hawk, one of the most spiritual characters in the show, whose very namesake infers that he sees far more and far better than most, even of course, eyes like a hawk. So some of these birds, like the thrush, are embodiments of light and goodness with their strikingly angelic songs and elusive nature, while other birds like the owl, great predators feeding on their fearful victims, like literal death bags in the night. Remember, Bob talks about, "I'll get you with my death bag," right? he may be talking about turning into an owl and then getting you. And of course, don't forget about the raven watching the cabin, as well as Waldo. Birds are very clever and capable of good, evil, and every sort of combination in between. And of all the birds in the forest of the Pacific Northwest, no species of songbird is nearly as enchanting and downright magical than thrushes, a species of bird known for their angelic and just incredibly unique songs. It's the same species of bird in the very first scene in the opening credits, of course. The hermit thrush specifically is especially enchanting. It's an elusive bird that is not easily seen, whose song sounds like it's emanating from many places in the forest all at the same time. Unlike most other birds, it is very difficult to locate their position just from listening to them sing. If you've ever heard one of these birds, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They're just incredible. As evidenced by the opening credits, as well as the final scene in Fire Walk with Me, the essence of Laura's spirit, to me, is forever linked to these angelic creatures. So now, skipping over many of the Scooby-Doo episodes involving Wyndham Earle, we arrive at the final episode of Season 2, also directed by David Lynch. Now, it's pretty well known that Lynch checked out from the production of Twin Peaks sometime early in Season 2, but came back to direct the final episode, as it was clear the show was running off the rails and wasn't going to be renewed for a third season anyway. Not that it would have been even considered for a third season in the next year, but the fact that that Lynch came back is a beautiful thing, because the captain of the ship finally closed out the show, and that's the way that it should be. And what a final episode it was, of course. It was the first, for the entire episode, really, for this final episode, Lynch seems to, he does very much lean into the goofiness that was already created earlier in the season, at least until we arrive at at the final sequence in the Red Room, and then things get really Lynchian again. Now, to me, the Red Room can be thought of as an art gallery in its visual presentation, each character dialogue, each scene serving as the embodiment of one piece or object of art, yet all are part of the same exhibit with their own, the exhibit itself has an underlying theme, and then within that underlying theme, you have the individual stories or pieces of art within that gallery or museum. That's the way I see that final scene in the Red Room. Only in this case, of course, the exhibition on display is one of spirits and souls and the human psyche, all inhabiting the same kind of unified field of consciousness, but paradoxically on their individual journeys as well. And so each scene or each person with their own unique attributes, but collectively all pointing at this unified theme of the Red Room gallery of conscious awareness, or what I interpret in the context of Twin Peaks as a sort of purgatory free-for-all, which is, in a way, represents the mind itself, complete with its parade of wild and uncontrollable thoughts, often resulting in a state of confusion, at least for those still clinging to the belief that every last detail must relay a deep and meaningful message, or else it's worthless. If you get anything at all from this video, I hope that you can accept that the purpose or reason for dancing is just simply to dance. I'll just leave it at that.